In 2003, an indie pro wrestling promotion known as PWG is formed. It is created by pro wrestlers Disco Machine, Excalibur, Scott Lost, Joey Ryan, Super Dragon, and Top Gun Talwar. Also happening in 2003 is a scandal I haven't seen many people talking about, involving Mark Letzman, better known to wrestling fans as Excalibur, who now works in AEW, and Kevin Steen, better known as Kevin Owens, now working in WWE. To give you some backstory on this scandal, they wanted to find a way to make a promo. They needed a promo, which basically means they needed a way to talk about a feud that they were having with other wrestlers. And in order to hype up this feud, they needed to get what's called heat. Now, if you're not, you know, proficient in old wrestling terms, heat basically means to be booed. They wanted to be booed during their feud with other wrestlers. So they were thinking of ideas. Another wrestler came up to them and told them, hey, call me a racial slur. They said, no, we're not going to do that. They refused at first, and then decided to do it. So, without further ado, I would just like to show you the clip of it.
Ooh, Super Dragon, you think you can replace myself and Disco Machine with a beaner and a fucking nigger? Does the N-word offend you, nigger? You made the right choice.
As you just heard in that video in terrible audio quality, Excalibur starts by calling Super Dragon a racial slur meant to be derogatory towards Mexican people. He then goes on to the Human Tornado and calls him a slur as well, this time with a hard R. Kevin Steen then hops in, saying, does the N-word offend you? And then calling Human Tornado that word. Very malicious from the two of them, especially for their defense of, well, we didn't want to say it, but the Human Tornado, convinced us. And that's something that I just don't get with this. Is people defend it. I've seen people defending it saying, oh, it's no different than using it in a movie. Using it in a movie is using it in a historical context. Does that make it right? God, no. Slurs should not be said as if they're just fun words that you sprinkle in there as sentence enhancers. You know, that's not something that I am on board with. I don't like when people are dropping racial slurs. But a movie or a book is in a historical context. This was in a malicious, I'm calling you that to get under your skin type way. And also, if they didn't want to do it, they didn't have to do it. They could have come up with something. They could have told the Human Tornado, nah, man, we're good. We're not going to say that, That's not going to happen. Don't suggest it again because it's never going to happen. It's not hard to say no, especially when one of you is the guy that runs the company. Like, what was the Human Tornado going to do? He hold you at gunpoint and make you say it? Like, what? It's just something that I will never get as a defense. The defense is, oh, well, they were told to say it. I didn't know that they had an RPG pointing at both their homes, telling them, hey, if you don't say that word, we're going to blow up everything you know and love. I'm sorry. I don't make the rules around here, Like, no, they have an option. They've always had an option. The option is don't be racist or be racist. And they chose be racist. Who in their right mind wouldn't choose the don't be racist option? It's the easiest option. Bro, what? It is so easy to avoid things like that. It's so easy to avoid being, racist and derogatory. And people do it. And then you got fans defending it. And the only time I've ever seen this brought up is as a joke. I've seen people joking about what Steen says there, where he says, does the N-word offend you? And then drops it. Dude, that's like some bullying type stuff. That's like something that you would hear, before the KKK comes into town, riding up in a white van with their torches and pitchforks ready to strike up a burning cross in front of somebody's house. Like, bro, I'm 95% sure if you ask a Ku Klux Klan member, have they ever said it like that? They say, yes, I say it like that every weekend. Every weekend. Like, what? Bro, it is so easy to not be racist, and yet they are. And going back to the whole thing of, the defense of Excalibur and Kevin Steen saying this with, oh, well, they were told it was okay by the human tornado. That is such a delusion. But you know what? Let's feed into their delusions for a moment. Let's get rid of them dropping the hard R for a second. For 1 second before we go back to reality and realize that that is not a defense. So, let's take the first slur that Excalibur said. What's the defense for that one? He dropped a slur against Mexican people. What is the defense for that if the defense for the other one is that the human tornado told them they could say it? Did the human tornado tell them they could say that one too? I didn't know that the human tornado spoke for all black people in existence and spoke for all Mexican people in existence. I'm sorry, I didn't get that memo. And I just don't believe that it is right at all to try and defend it with, well, they were told that they could say it, so they said it. Look at it. If I tell you that you have to push a crane up and down the street, uphill both ways, and with your bare hands, are you going to do it because I said that you had to do it, because I said that you could do it? No! You're going to look me in the face and go, you're insane, stop suggesting that. How is that any different from this? How is it any different that, they were suggested, oh, well, you could say the slur, and they just didn't refuse? Like, what? They refused at first, and then eventually went along with it. And that's what I'm saying. You can say no to these things, especially Excalibur and Kevin Steen, who were really big names at the time. You're telling me that the owner of the company, one of the owners of the company, and one of the owners of the company's best friend can't say no to something? They can't say, nah, bruh, I'm good, I don't want to do that, or maybe that's not for me. No, they can just go, oh, well, we don't really want to. Do it. Oh, okay, I'll do it. Like, what? If you could eventually crumble under that, if you could eventually go, well, you know what, I'll say it. If you can eventually go like that, from being convinced, from saying, no, I'm not going to do it, to, oh, well, we'll do it. You never wanted to say no in the first place. Don't even lie to yourself, Like, that is the insane part to me, is that people defend this. And it's not defending it because, they truly believe it's right in their heart of hearts that if you're told you could say the word, that you could say it. They're defending this, in my opinion, because of where these wrestlers are located. Because of who they are. At the time, PWG was a big deal. Those two were big deals. And because they were big deals in PWG and people are so nostalgia blinded, they can't allow themselves to, steer clear of nostalgia and accept that things were wrong. Things can be wrong, years into the future and be pointed out that they're wrong. It doesn't mean that you have to look back on it and say, well, it's fine, because it was a different time. I'll go deeper into that, later on in this video. But I just want to mention now that, things being in the past don't make it okay. It is not okay just because something's in the past and time has passed since it happened, You can't tell me that everything's alright with time. Crumple up a paper, smooth it out, leave it on the floor for 3 days and tell me, does it unwrinkle? No, because time doesn't do that. You have to make an effort to change, to do better. You have to make an effort to actually become a better person. You can't just sit there and hope that time changes you into what you want to be. And something that I've seen is people saying that, oh, Excalibur apologized. And I would just like to talk about that. Is an apology a true apology when you're only apologizing because you got caught? I think that when you say you're sorry, you should mean it. That's the only reason it would matter, is if you truly and honestly mean that you are sorry and you are trying to get better. But to just say, oh, hey, I'm sorry, because you got caught, that's not an apology. That's called, I just don't want to hear about it anymore. Stop bringing it up. I'll say I'm sorry, but I'm not going to actually do any better. The only consequences that have ever come from this have been Excalibur being taken off of like 2 AEWs. That's it. Nobody cares that this happened. Nobody cares that only Excalibur apologized for it is another worst part. Excalibur apologized in a terrible way. He apologized only because he was sorry, but Steen didn't even apologize whatsoever. He just kind of, I'll sit back and relax and just let it happen. And that's my thing is that WWE runs so many, anti-bullying campaigns, and they run about how, you shouldn't discriminate people based on their race or on who they like and stuff. But WWE doesn't ever follow that. WWE is constantly doing racist things, supporting racism, and doesn't really show that they care for any of that. And this isn't a video about WWE, but it fits with what I'm saying about, Steen. When that whole thing came out again in 2020, nothing happened to Kevin Owens. It was just kind of, sweep it under the rug. Excalibur could take the flack for it and hope and pray that nobody complains. And nobody did, because that's the issue with WWE and AEW. If you say something about the wrestlers in AEW or in WWE, they will be defended to death, because they can do no wrong. It's something that I've noticed where if, so let's take this example, for example. Let's take Steen and Excalibur. They drop slurs, they dropped these slurs as I just showed you, and fans were defending, oh, it happened such a long time ago. This time heal all wounds. I'm going to use a very extreme example here. Okay, this is going to be very extreme. If I snap your arm so badly that, you could never use it correctly again, 10 years down the line, you shouldn't be mad at me because, time passed. You gotta live and, you gotta live and forget. You gotta live and let bygones be bygones. It's fine. It was so long ago, it doesn't really matter anymore. Is that an argument that you can truly make for racism, discrimination, for anything, honestly? Oh, it's been so long, it's okay. Just let it be. It's fine. Let it go. Man, it's all right. Like, what is wrong with people? Like, why not have the common sense to say, hey, slurs are wrong, saying slurs are wrong, do better, take accountability. You shouldn't have apologized, years down the line. You should have apologized almost immediately. You shouldn't have even done the thing. You shouldn't have done the thing, and if you truly felt bad about doing it, you would have apologized much sooner, is what I'm trying to say, And neither of them apologized soon. Excalibur's took years, and that was when they brought it back up. It's insane to me that this is just, it's okay. Let's just sweep it under the rug, And I want to talk about another thing. So let me get to that real quick. The other thing I want to talk about is Sami Zayn. Now, there's a saying. If there's one Nazi sitting at a table, and 11 other people sitting around them perfectly fine, then there's 12 Nazis in that table. So if there's two racists who do racist things, and their best friend doesn't seem to talk about it or have any problem with it, that makes 3 racists instead of just 2. In my mind, Sami Zayn is a hypocrite. He claims to stand for, people being free and people not being discriminated against and hated on. But dude, you're sitting right there next to 2 racists and have no issue with it, And it's like CM Punk just did, where CM Punk's been talking about how, oh, I hate Saudi Arabia, I'm not going over there, and then is proceeding to go over there. But it's the same with Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn is not no morally superior person. Sami Zayn is also a hypocrite, Because I saw people talking about Sami Zayn and how he's, willing to stand up for what he believes in, but he's not. Trust me, he's not, Like, and if we even want to get a little bit further, we could throw up a racist segment that Sami Zayn did, just in case you want a little bit more, evidence of Sami Zayn being a racist.
What the fuck is this shit? Where the fuck am I? Hemingford? What the fuck is Hemingford? What is this shit? Bluegrass? How's a brother supposed to dance the bluegrass? I can't work this shit. I can't work this. Yo, I came over here, not one brother in town, not one black man. I'm the only black man in town. Yo, You tell me that's not racism? Yo, shut the fuck up, cracker! Shut the fuck up, cracker! Crack-ass cracker! When the revolution comes, I'm taking you out first! Motherfucker! Yo, I'm sick of this shit. I'm going back to my fucking Black Panthers fucking meeting, and I'ma school all these cracker motherfucking shit. And get some real fucking music!
As you just saw in that video, Sami Zayn portrays a very stereotypical version of a black man, an aggressive, racist activist who's against all white people. He makes a reference to the Black Panther Party. This segment took place in about 2003 to 2004. The Black Panther Party was dissolved in 1982. This party stood to get rid of discrimination that black people had against them. And so he makes a mockery of it by bringing it up here and using it as, I guess, fuel for him to be seen as a true black man. He calls a man a racial slur multiple times, even saying that he'll take the man out first as soon as the revolution comes. I do agree with the bluegrass comment though. Bluegrass is trash. You know, I'm not gonna fight him on that one. But I am gonna fight him on the rest of it. And it's very weird to me that Sami Zayn's idea of a black person is an aggressive racist who hates all white people. You know? It's very weird to me that that is the first thing that came to mind when he thought of, oh, I'm going to play a character where I'm pretending to be black. You know? That racism was his very first thing. Suspicious to me, you know? I'm not going to make any, guesses here, but I'll let y'all do the math. You know, it's very, very suspicious, you know? Another thing I've seen people doing is looking back fondly on that Sami Zayn character. You know, talking about how great it was and stuff. And I don't believe it's great at all. I believe that's just full-on racist. And there will be some people that, saying, oh, it was okay back then. That's just normal. That was just the comedy back then. You know, you're looking at it too sensitively. First off, it is okay to look at things with a modern lens and say, hey, that's bad. You shouldn't have done that at all. Like, bro, you should probably apologize for that, take accountability, try to do better, you know? But there's also the part of me that says, like, bro, so what if it was good back then? That doesn't mean everybody has to do it. Like, people who say that, I think that their parents never told them, hey, if Todd goes and robs a bank, are you gonna go join him? Like, be right by his side? Like, bro, you answer that with no, man. I think for myself. We're not some sort of hive mind that does everything, the exact same way for the exact same reasoning, you know? And that's my thing as well, is like, it's what people say, oh, that was the humor back then. You know, you can't just say, oh, that was normal back then. It was perfectly fine. Like, bro, no, it's still a horrible thing. It is still a bad thing. Just because it was normalized back then doesn't mean that it's not a terrible thing and that people shouldn't have even done it back then. Like, how does it make it okay? Oh, they did it back then, so it's perfectly fine to, you can't criticize them now for it. It was okay back then. It's okay now for them to do it back then, you know? Like, that makes no sense. How is it okay for them to have done it in the first place because it was in a different year, so you can't complain about it in the current year because it was in a different year. And that different year, it was normalized to do it. Like, it makes no sense to me, man. It just makes zero sense. But to summarize this all, I believe that Steen and Excalibur, as well as Sami Zayn, should all have to take accountability for what they did here. For Steen and Excalibur dropping slurs, and for Sami Zayn using a very stereotypical, what he deems to be a black man, which in his mind is a racist activist who cannot stand, white people. It's very weird. I think that they should have to take accountability. I don't think that they should just get off easy, because, oh, it was a different year, it was a different time, it was so long ago. I don't believe in that, like, I choose to believe that if you did something wrong, you should, if you did it in the first place, apologize, in my mind, you shouldn't have to apologize because you shouldn't have done it in the first place. But if you did it, you should apologize and take efforts to be better. Not try to just sweep it under the rug and pretend it doesn't exist. And then when you're called out for it, then and only then do you decide that you want to, apologize for it. Because that's what it is at the end of the day. There is no actual apology for this. There is no feeling bad. There is nothing that says, hey, I've learned, I've become better. It is just straight up sweep it under the rug, hope nobody brings it up, and then when it is brought up, I'll just stay silent until it falls back into obscurity again. There is no effort to be better. At least with, all the stuff I've been exposing during this month, because it's Pride Month, there have been some consequences for some, whether it be, making them take classes to try and fix their bigotry, and, taking some of their pay and donating it to, people who are affected by bigotry and discrimination and hate crimes, But here it's just ignore, let it be swept under the rug, and not a single person cares about it. And that gets me mad, To see something as blatantly racist as this, and just see it get swept under the rug, see it get ignored, and then, the people who do bring it up make it a joke, it sickens me, And again, as I've already stated here, people see it as okay because Human Tornado told them they could say it. Does that make it okay? Does Human Tornado speak for everybody as a whole? No, he doesn't speak for everybody. So if he tells them that, they could drop a slur, that doesn't mean that everybody else automatically has to accept that. And B, the fact that he told them they could drop a slur, they said no at first, and then went, okay, fine, and dropped it with so much enthusiasm is an issue. And I didn't even mention this in the Excalibur part, but I want to mention it now. This is not the first time he has said that word. There is another one. I couldn't find the video of it, but I have heard multiple times that he has dropped it another time. Without the R, but that doesn't make it better. That does not make it better. Oh, well, you didn't use it in a discriminatory way. You still dropped a racial slur, bro. Out of all the words you could use in the English language, and people gotta fall back on slurs, hatred, and, discrimination. What is wrong with humanity? Like, bro, why can't we all be better? Why can't we all try to be better? Why can't we strive for success and seeing everybody as equals rather than being so obsessed with ourselves, having to believe that we are superior based on whatever it is, race, gender, anything, who we like, religion, weight, age, etc., 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 Why do we have to believe that we are better than others just to make ourselves feel good? Allow me to quote Tupac, "Take the evil out the people, they'll be acting right." And I believe that. If there was no evil in the world, everybody would see each other as equals. But unfortunately, there is evil in this world, and unfortunately, some people just cannot see that we are all the exact same. At the end of the day, we're all human beings. Nothing changes us from each other. Oh, well, you have a different skin color than me. You like somebody different than I do. You look different than me. That's okay. It is okay to have differences. Because without differences, that wouldn't make us who we are. Everybody's special in their own way. There is no such thing as 1 in a million people. Every single person is 1 in 7 or 8 billion people. You are the only you that exists out there. So why is it okay to hate on people just because they're different? All of us are different. And that's a good thing. Differences make us who we are. And I believe that it is beautiful to show those differences. But with that being said, hopefully you enjoyed this video and it informed you at what kind of person Excalibur, Kevin Steen, and Sami Zayn actually are. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, so that way it'll be recommended to more people. Now with that being said, I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and tune in for the next video.